Hey everyone, this is Kelsey from the Arcane Library, and today I'm going to walk you through a brand new adventure I just released called the Hideous Halls of Mugdulblub, which is available in Cursed Scroll Zine. I'm showing it to you here on an iPad, but it's going to actually be physical print or PDF. And it is a first level adventure I wrote for this zine, and it is using the Shadowdark RPG rules, and I will put a link to that in the description here. It's an RPG I'm working on, but it's basically just old school D&D rules. And you can use it with 5th edition as well. So I'll give you the secrets for all of that coming right up as we dive into the walkthrough for this adventure. So starting off, this adventure is for first level characters, and it's very focused on exploration and there's no real story goal. The point is to kind of come to this adventuring site and to explore it and try to find treasure and just try to go on an adventure. It's sort of a classic Golden Glory style adventure. So to kick off with, there's a map for this adventure that I actually drew myself, which, can you believe it? This is the first map I have ever drawn that I've published that I actually drew with my own hand. So here it is. This is our map. And it's in this kind of classic old school black and white style. And you can see that it's sort of a sprawling complex. And you have sort of a cave system here, and you have some worked stone areas. And what's actually going on is this is a keep that has an underground area. And the keep above is abandoned, and it's collapsing. And it's been abandoned for a while. It used to be inhabited by the Bittermold family. It's called Bittermold Keep. But now it's in ruins because that family was driven mad and sort of collapsed in upon itself, because in the caverns below the keep, this elder ooze called Mugdulblub bubbled up out of the mortar and sort of took residence down there and drove all of the residents mad. So now in this day and age, it's an abandoned location, but it has the descendants of the Bittermolds who became worshippers of Mugdulblub, the elder ooze. And every so often, petitioners come trying to win Mugdulblub's favor, and so it creates this faction warfare. So that's what's going on here when the characters arrive for the first time. So there are some notes in this adventure about the factions at play, but it's nothing too complicated. It's the Bittermold family and a group of halfling travelers called the Howlers who were given a vision by Mugdulblub and came here to try to win favor. And now Mugdulblub is kind of uncaring about who worships it and who has its favor, as long as that group gives it food and allows it to dissolve things and bring about the dissolution, which is the ultimate fate of everything. So just to kick off, you're going to have an overview section here. And it's going to talk a little bit about the factions and about how the room keys work and just a brief background of this location. And then right next to that, because this is going to be in a spread format, so you can either use this like as the zine as a spread, or I guess you could just look at it one page at a time, but just so you know, it's meant to be viewed as a spread. That's helpful. So here we are with the second page of that, and this is the rumors table, as well as just a little more information about Bittermold Keep and something called an order of battle, which is what to do if some of these intelligent factions start to call for help or start to move around the dungeon during combat. So then we'll jump right into the area descriptions here. So this is areas 1 through 33. This is a pretty large adventure. Right off the bat, you're going to have a random encounters table. And now in Shadowdark RPG and old school D&D, you would check for an encounter every set number of rounds. So in this adventure, you're going to check for an encounter every 3 rounds of exploration. And so you just roll a d6. If you get a 1, that means that you roll up a random encounter. And so there's a possibility of having things happen like encountering some of the Howlers, those halflings, encountering some Bittermolds, and even encountering some mutant catfish, which are a new creature that has always lived down in the river beneath the keep, but because of Mugdulblub's warping presence, these mutant catfish have grown legs and have sort of gained a dim intelligence, and they're just mad at everybody and don't like that there are people down in the keep and people that grab them and try to sacrifice them to Mugdulblub all the time. So there's sort of a third wild card faction that the players might end up encountering or even allying with. So we're gonna just jump straight through now. I'm using sort of a boiled keyword format for this adventure because it's on an A5 sheet of paper. It's like a booklet sized piece of paper. So there's not a lot of space to write. So what you're gonna get at the beginning is a keyword with some description, like east wall, pockmarked with jagged holes. So it's kind of like not full complete sentences, but it's very easy to glance through the top portion here. What's up here? Let's see if I can get it to focus. And then the bulleted information down below is specifically for the game master and for development, like as the characters explore the rooms. So what we have is, I'm going to show you the map actually and sort of guide you room by room. There's a lot of stuff in this dungeon, a ton of stuff. So I'm probably not going to hit a detailed description of every single room, but I want to give you an overview of what's going on here. So there are two ways to enter this dungeon. One, you can come in through the front door, essentially, which is right here. Or down here, there's a river that actually flows through the dungeon and exits out the south side of a hill behind it. So the characters could actually find that tunnel and come up through, or use that as a way to come and go once they discover it. So just to note that the adventure might begin either in room 1, which is pretty typical. It's a trapdoor beneath the crumbling ruins of Bittermold Keep, which is, by the way, turning to mushy sludge because of Mugdulblub's presence. So anything made of stone in this adventure is actually starting to melt and sort of become waxy and soft. So that includes the mortar of the keep and the stones and everything. So kind of a interesting way you can convey that to the characters. That vibe is just talking about how the stone is sort of mushy and dripping and flowing. So anyway, back to the adventure. The characters could come in. There's immediately a room with a secret door, and hopefully the characters will find it because throughout the adventure there are hints at this secret door. So they come into this room, and then as they explore in this direction towards this area, this is where the Howlers are making their camp. So there are a bunch of halflings, a new creature, and they're led by Gordok Brieg. Howlers are a new creature, but their leader is kind of this visionary halfling who eats toxic algae, but then gets visions of Mugdulblub. So he's led his entire tribe of halflings here on this mission to try to win Mugdulblub's favor, and he believes he has to do that by defeating the Bittermolds who reside here and sort of gaining a foothold. So that's his mission. Now, there's a lot of them in the 4th room, and the characters are probably not going to do so well if they just run in and start fighting. The point here is to either sneak around or negotiate or maybe attack them in small bits and pieces to try to defeat them if the characters decide to be enemies with the Howlers. So this is sort of bringing some old school style play forward into a newer mindset of D&D, and it's fun to make challenges that aren't just solvable with combat, of course. So what the characters might also notice on their way through room 2 is that there is an acid quicksand trap. This is a trap you'll see throughout the dungeon, but it's a square of 10. It's a 10 by 10 foot square, and characters who fall in will have to make a DC 12 dexterity check or save to escape it, and they're taking 1d4 damage around. So it's sort of like damaging mud. And there are several places where it's marked on the map that there's some acid quicksand. So that's on the way to the Howlers. Going to the west, the characters are going to start to get into a cave section. And moving south, I want to point out just like a couple of fun rooms here. So you can see there's a network of caves. Oops, that's the blank version. This is the labeled version. There's a network of built rooms here, and the secret room is one that I really enjoyed. If the characters find that, it has a giant pipe organ in there that has some effects if the characters play it. If they play it like a sad or sort of evil song, they'll get a benefit, and if they play a happy good song, something bad will happen. It sets off a trap. So that's what's going on there. You also have a couple other secret rooms by the stairs. Let me see if I can get the camera to show them to you. So these curving rooms and that L-shaped room are both secret, and they have skeletons that will shoot out of arrow slits at any non-Bittermolds who pass by. So that's just a good thing to note as the characters are exploring. So moving towards the west side, there's some more cave sections. There's a few new monsters here that they'll have to either get around or not upset. These are tar bats, which are upset by light and fire. So in a lot of cases, the encounters in this dungeon, the characters can actually sneak or negotiate past. One primary example of that as well is the gold catfish right here in this watery room. The gold catfish is a totally non-hostile sort of NPC creature that has a ton of treasure and knowledge about the dungeon. So the gold catfish is in fact made purely of gold. So characters could try to kill the gold catfish, which would be difficult, or try to negotiate for or steal treasure from the bottom of its pool, or even ask it questions about the dungeon. So this is a totally open-ended encounter. It could resolve in combat, discussion, stealth, or just totally being bypassed as well. So that's what I'm trying to go for with this particular exploration heavy style dungeon. So in this room, there is a gelatinous cube with a statue trapped inside it. And so let me see if I can get it to focus. This room right here. And the statue appears to be floating around, and so that's hopefully going to draw the characters into the room to investigate, and they'll realize, perhaps too late, that it's inside a gelatinous cube. Just to the south of that, in room 21, there's some bitter molds holding some howlers hostage. There's an NPC in room 20, an undead NPC who might be able to offer the characters some help. And then in room 22, Mugdulblub itself is there. Now, the characters can actually have an encounter with and talk with this elder patron. It's a being of incredible eldritch power. I wouldn't recommend fighting it, and I think that the characters might implicitly know that after seeing it. You can fight Mugdulblub. It's probably just not going to go well unless you're higher level. But Mugdulblub is not immediately hostile. In fact, is somewhat uncaring and only wants to be fed and to bring about the dissolution. So in this case, characters could ally with or even become servants of Mugdulblub and gain actual boons from it. So that's explained in room 22, and also a little bit more throughout Cursed Scroll Zine, which this adventure appears in. So now we're down in this room, and if you move in this direction, now remember this is the river entrance and exit, you can follow the river up in this direction, and here there's a cave. So this room right here has a secret wall, and this illusory wall leads to a crypt right here that has some bitter mold family heirlooms and treasure in there. However, it also has some undead bodies that might rise as wights if the characters mess with them, so they'll want to be really careful. And then headed this way through these tunnels is where you start to get into bitter mold territory. So they have a camp here of a bunch of bitter molds, more than would be wise to fight just outright. So again, a situation where the characters want to negotiate or make friends or sneak or make allies or make false alliances. It introduces a ton of interesting NPC options and encounter options apart from combat. Just off to the side from where the bitter molds make their main camp, in this room, here you have Plugrina Bittermold. She's the current leader of the Bittermold tribe, who are sort of a warped, mutated bunch of people who are slavishly worshipping Mugdulblub, and that's all they care about. So Plugrina herself is pretty crafty, and she might try to seek out an alliance. She's likely to betray the characters the second that she thinks it would serve her or make Mugdulblub happy, because she's afraid of losing Mugdulblub's favor. So anything that she can do to try to keep it or bolster it is really her number one. And she does not want competing people vying for Mugdulblub's favor, so if she finds out that the characters are here seeking out Mugdulblub's favor, she's going to be pretty upset about that, and will probably sneakily betray them and pretend to be their friends until that moment. Also in her room, she has a giant magnetic lodestone. It's like a pillar of iron that has become magnetic, and there's a cool piece of treasure stuck to the top of it, but she will also leverage that to trap people wearing armor or their weapons if she wants to ambush people. So in room 29, that's where she's got her possible ambush set up. And then finally, we're coming back around towards the front entrance, but up in this direction, you're finding some mutant catfish territory. So this is their primary pool. They don't tend to, they're not as complex as far as making alliances and going out trying to destroy each other for Mugdulblub's favor. However, they do want to get rid of the bitter molds, and they will ally with anyone or offer treasure to anyone who's willing to do that. And in this room, in room 33, the last room, they actually have their great treasure, which appears to be a pile of 100 coins gold coins on a pedestal, but it's actually the pedestal, the rock itself, that's the treasure. Any creature standing on it, their strength becomes 18 or 20. It maxes their strength out. So that is actually their most prized possession, and they offer it to people who are willing to get rid of the bitter molds. So that'll be an interesting thing for the characters to figure out what to do with, because it's this giant wheel of rock. Not terribly easy to move, but if you're standing on it, you're incredibly strong, so it could prove useful, and it's definitely a weird thing that the catfish would find interesting and precious because they're strange. So that's it then. We've kind of done a broad walk around of all the rooms. The rooms there are 33 of them, and the adventure is about 11 pages in length. It comes with this map with everything noted on it, the location of monsters, some overworld notes like where there's illusory walls, where there are traps, how deep the river is in certain sections. So I really tried to make this map a be-all end-all reference that you can really look at and use to run the adventure almost primarily, and just refer back to the adventure notes as needed, but have this be sort of your control panel. So that is it. That is the Hideous Halls of Mugdulblub. I hope that you send some adventurers in there and get to experience its strange explorations. And check out Cursed Scroll. It's up for pre-order right now on my website, thearcanelibrary.com. Physical print is on pre-order, or you can get the PDF immediately if you buy the physical print, or just as a separate PDF if you just want that. And you can have this whole 68-page zine plus this adventure and its maps all for yourself to run. Check out Shadowdark RPG as well if you want to use those rules for this game. It's designed to fit perfectly with that, but if you want to run it for 5th edition, all you have to do is take any monsters with 6 hit dice or higher and double their damage and double their hit points, and you should be able to run it rather seamlessly just with that quick hack. So thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoy this one, and I'll catch you guys later. All right, bye-bye.